welcome back. We're going to be going over red now in our set review for Amonkhet, so let's just jump right in. The first card we've got is the On-Crop Crasher. It's a 2 and a red, it's an uncommon, and it's a 3/2 Minotaur Warrior. It's got haste, so that's already pretty good. You're not too upset about it. But it's got exert, and when you exert the On-Crop Crasher, target creature can't block this turn. That seems pretty good. 3/2, 3 mana cost, and it's got haste, 3 power. That's kind of the stats you like to see, especially in your red aggressive deck. And if you need to get in for those extra couple points when they have some blockers, which 2 toughness isn't, it's get blocked and it trades quite frequently with the defending creatures. The exert ability is going to be pretty good.
Yeah, I mean,
this card's not bad.
We've seen this guy before, Goblin Heel Cutter or whatever. This guy wins games. He's been a first pick, and if you get multiples of them, you're swinging through, and they're looking at their one blocker and say he can't block. It's an offensive guy. You don't have to exert this guy. You can just play him as a 3/2 haster, and his price, the price is right for this guy.
Yeah, definitely.
He is good.
It's one of those things like you're going to attack in for 3 without exerting it when the coast is clear, and then when you have to exert it because they do have blockers or be able to swing in for game, then that's a good place to be. And this card's pretty good. This is one of actually my favorite exert creatures thus far. It's I guess maybe in white the Dustwalker I liked a little bit more, or maybe the Bird. But this one, just for being a ground beater, I like this one in terms of being exerting.
I mean, exert seems kind of like a red ability so far. I mean, like just kind of
super aggressive
all around. This is the first red exert we've seen, but it seems like a red ability, and you don't really care if your guy doesn't untap if you win the game.
Yeah. Not bad. So overall, you pick it fairly highly, but you have to be aggressive because on defense this guy's not that great.
Right.
Our next card, it's another uncommon. It's the Battlefield Scavenger. It's a 1 and a red for a 2/2. It's another exert creature. You may exert it, and whenever you exert a creature, you may discard a card. If you do, draw a card. So this is the first time we've seen exert that cares about other things exerting. It itself doesn't have its own exert ability. You still get the rummaging ability, I guess. What the red card draw you discard?
Looting, rummaging.
Yeah, because you discard first.
Okay.
So when you exert the Battlefield Scavenger, you get its ability. You discard and then draw a card. But or if you have a bunch of other exert creatures, this happens. I'm not really too big on this card. It's still kind of just it's got slight more upside being a 2/2 for 2, but. Otherwise,
unless you have that discard or cycles matters, you're probably just going to be pitching this card for a land and slowing down your.
I feel though if you have discard or cycles matter, you probably aren't as aggressive as this deck kind of wants you to be.
Right, and it kind of looks like discard or cycles matters is maybe outside of red. We don't know yet, but so it might be hard to splash red with it. But the rummaging ability, like he said, is. Kind of expensive to use right here. We've seen it before when creatures attack without the exert thing, and then it seems okay. So here it seems a little subpar.
Yeah, exactly. And odds are when you're attacking and exerting with this, by the time you're doing that, you know that this creature's kind of met its utility, and you're kind of digging for something. I feel like this is the kind of creature where you don't pick it highly if you know you have a bunch of exert creatures, which... That being said, I don't know if that's necessarily the best place you want to be in your deck, just having a bunch of exert creatures, because kind of on par, their stats are just okay, and then the exert should be just a bonus. You pick this one up after you have the exert creatures, not before that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. He's not a reason to get a bunch of exert things. He's a cool bonus once you have exert.
Because it seems like you don't really want to exert this guy, because if you're pitching a card that you already drafted, it seems like you're kind of maybe in a bad place. You're discarding a land that you don't want.
And we've kind of seen from the set so far, just bears are not all that great. There's much better that you can do, and on its base, it's just a bear.
A bear.
Yeah, so overall, this can wait. If you're exerting, then maybe pick it up a little bit later. Even then, it's still passable.
This can definitely wait.
Yeah. So. The next card we've got, it's Blazing Volley. It's a common, it's a single red, and Blazing Volley deals 1 damage to each creature your opponents control. Yeah, it's interesting. We've seen Electrickery before with this type of effect, or we've seen a similar type of effect. Electrickery was an instant, of course.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different, but...
It costs 1.
Yeah, it does only cost 1. I guess you can finish off a bunch of things. I feel like this is it'll be a this will be weird. I don't feel like it's going to pick things off all that often.
Right, and I think this is going to stay in your sideboard until you get overrun by a bunch of 1/1 tokens. Other than that, it's going to be,
Yeah, this is strictly a sideboard card.
Strictly sideboard card.
Yeah, and don't pick it up early because it's very, very more than replaceable.
Right. I mean, it could be a 4-for-1 for 1 mana, but that's a very, very rare occasion.
And you'll know it if it comes out of your sideboard.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So there's that. Pass on the Blazing Volley. It's pretty cool of effect, and this might be a popper card.
Right.
But for limited in Amonkhet, it's a pass. Our next red card is the Bloodlust Inciter. It's another single red card, so we're getting pretty low to the ground kind of things. It's a 1/1 human warrior, and it has tap. Target creature gains haste until end of turn. This is, you kind of can judge our reaction as at best.
You gotta hold him back to give another creature haste.
So one thing, this guy doesn't have haste by himself.
No, he doesn't have
so
haste.
You have to wait a turn to be able to give something else haste.
Right.
And this effect by itself just isn't worth a card.
No.
You're not playing your 1/1 to be able to give other things haste. You can get more value out of an aura. We've seen these haste type auras before that give some other bonus, which that's a little bit better. Or if this card had haste by itself, maybe then, but even it's not worth a card.
Right.
This you probably shouldn't be one that you're playing.
Yeah, and a creature that's not as good as an aura is not a good creature. So.
Exactly. Yeah. Certainly. Let's we'll pass on the Bloodlust Inciter.
Right. All right, on to Blood Rage Brawler. For 2 mana, you get a 4/3.
It's got scary.
So maybe some -1 counters on it. Oh, no. When it enters the battlefield, discard a card, and you don't have to sacrifice it if you don't discard the card.
Yes, exactly. It's an uncommon for 1 in a red.
For 1 in a red, definitely. Let's get everything right so we know. So for 1 in a red, we have a 4/3. So we have that 2 mana for a 4/3.
Yeah, that seems very above curve.
Right. I mean, he can be bolted, but this guy is awesome. This guy's going to be, he wants to be the last card you play. If you have a very, very fast deck for just 2 mana, you can pitch a land that you didn't need. But overall, pound for pound, this guy is a brute. He does everything you want a red fast creature to do. You don't want to be stuck with a bunch of cards that you have to discard, but if you really don't care and you just want a 4-power creature for 2 mana, this is the guy to go to.
We've seen this kind of sub theme even with the limited amount of red cards we've seen, but there's going to be a black-red really aggressive deck that cares about getting as close to Hellbent, and Hellbent meaning you don't have any cards in your hand. Just having very few cards in hands. There was the Grim Strider we saw earlier, where it was the 6/6, where it gets -1/-1. That's in black, so that seems like a very aggressive color pairing. And this card fits kind of just right in that deck, and it's got the stats to really beat down. And if you know you're in that very aggressive deck, and this isn't too much of a drawback, and who knows, it looks like the discarding matters is actually more aggressive, whereas cycling matters is more of a controlling type of a way of looking at the cards. So I like this card. I don't feel like I want to be aggressive in this format from what I've seen so far. There's just so much value that you can get, but this will be able to get in and it'll hit hard.
Yeah. I really don't like his toughness of 3 because it leaves you open to that 2-for-1. You play it, you discard a card that you have to draw. It has to be in your hand, and then all they do is just bolt it or do 3 damage to it. It's gone. But the 4 power is definitely a reason to try this guy out. I mean, like this Rakdos aggro thing might be the deck to go, and it might just pound face all day long. And
if you're aggressive, pick up this card. If you're not, then stay away from it.
Yeah. I like this guy.
Yeah.
All right, Brute Strength for 2 mana, 1 in a red. Target creature gains +3/+1 and trample. This is a reprint.
Yeah, we've seen some version of this card in a bunch of different sets. Sometimes it costs 1, sometimes it costs 2, sometimes the stats are a little bit different. But we've seen this type of effect. The same kind of analysis that goes into combat tricks. This one's pretty cheap. The effect is pretty good. combat tricks. You generally want it to help your creature live through combat.
Right, exactly. The
Only giving
toughness up a little
only
bit.
giving 1 toughness.
It has a very
prevents that.
very narrow margin to keep
Yes.
your creature alive. But if you need to get through for those last few trample points, the last few points of damage, and
Yeah,
they
this
don't see
card
coming,
card is going to do a lot of damage. You know, you have your 4/3 that we just saw the Blood Rage Brawler into brute strength. Your 7 power of trample. That's a lot of damage, but it's a little bit rough. Like I said, it's the combat trick that doesn't keep your creature around.
It'll help push your really fast 1/1 army through if they start dropping bigger creatures.
Yep.
You know, if they do happen to block it, you could play this card on it and get those last few like trample points down. But other than that, it's not really a combat trick. It's more of a just get more damage in there.
Yeah, it's almost like a 2-mana like Searing Spear,
right?
Kind
Exactly.
of thing. That's how you have to look at this card.
A conditional Searing Spear.
Yeah.
At that, so.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. You have to have creatures. So once again, this is the kind of combat trick where you know you're going to want to be aggressive, and you need this to get your last couple points points through. Otherwise, you can let this go in the pack. You're not going to be too upset if you don't end up with one of these. If you are super aggressive, then it goes up in value, but not having one isn't the end of the world.
Right, and you kind of expect sometimes people to play with these things, but in the end, it does 3 damage. You don't really care. I expect to get this card as a last pick.
Yeah,
a lot of times.
Yeah, so. A fair amount of time.
Yeah. All right, on to By Force. X and red, destroy target artifacts, and it's a sorcery. So, you know, we have the answer to the vehicles and other formats.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
You know, in this looks like this limited for just Amonkhet. No.
Yeah, this is just going to be a pass. This maybe it'll have some constructed implications. Only X being able to kill a bunch of artifacts, but there aren't really any artifacts, and we'll be going over the artifacts shortly that you're gonna have to worry about. This is not Kaladesh anymore. We're not in the world of the inventors.
Right.
We're in the world of the just regular creatures beating face. So
the pyramids, regular creatures beating face, but vehicles are out, destroying X artifacts. Although it does have Chandra on it, lighting a bunch of stuff on fire, which is actually really cool.
That's cool, but as a card. Sure, maybe if you end up getting this one, and maybe it's a sideboard card, but that's still probably being generous.
Maybe a sideboard card. I mean, yeah. It all depends on what artifact creatures are roaming around, but I don't think there are too many.
It's a pass.
All right, Cartouche of Zeal.
All right, the red cartouche.
We have made it far. We're on to the red cartouche here. So, an Aura Cartouche, just like they all are, for 1 red. Enchant creature you control, which I think they all are.
Yep.
When Cartouche of Zeal enters the battlefield, target creature can't block this turn. So that's definitely a red ability. And also the creature has +1/+1 and haste if it ever matters. Does it ever really matter?
Sometimes. It could. I mean, they printed Bloodlust Insider as a card, but just look at this. The Cartouche of Zeal. Every single time, I'd rather have the Cartouche than the Bloodlust Insider.
Right, yes. I mean, I think you're right, and it also helps you get those trials back. We've already seen the black trial. That's awesome. We know
that there's some synergies between if you have trials, the Cartouches go up a little bit more, and vice versa. If you have Cartouches, the trials go up in value a little bit more. This one's pretty good for a single red. This is this is the market that you kind of want to be in, and for the same reason that the On-Crop Crasher can kind of, with its exert ability, a creature can't block.
Right.
This can possibly end the game.
Right. If they're sitting back on that one creature hoping to block, and you throw this down, and they're staring at it, basically doing nothing, it's done its job. So basically it's a one-time use for the can't block, but it also, if you can squeeze that haste in there, play this and play the creature at the same time.
Yeah.
+1/+1. It's okay.
It's certainly far from the best cartouche.
Right.
The blue one granting flying, and the white one, or the black one getting lifelink. This one, it still gets the +1/+1, but the not block ability. This one's by far the most aggressive of them, and you'll play that in the aggressive deck. Otherwise, you'll probably want some more trials in order to get the to have value. But it's not the white one.
It's not the white one. So if you're trial heavy, maybe, but otherwise, just keep looking.
Yep.
So.
Cool. All right. Going through red as fast, just like red would be. Our next red card is Consuming Fervor. It's another aura, and another one that costs a single red, except this one's uncommon. Enchant creature. And enchanted creature gets +3/+3 and has, at the beginning of your upkeep, put a -1/-1 counter on this creature.
Ooh, okay, so
Yeah.
I made mention earlier about unstable mutation, so this looks like a red version of unstable mutation.
Yeah.
And that's a throwback from an old blue card of all cards that wanted this ability.
Yeah.
But I'm glad unstable mutation finally found the right color
Yeah.
where it needed to be.
The flavor of this is kind of cool. You make your creature bigger, and then over time it kind of like... It's almost as if it exerted itself. It's getting tired over the course of a couple turns.
Yeah.
Unlike Exert, it's still on tap, so it just gets smaller. So,
Yeah.
you know, the first turn it's +3, second turn it's +2, then +1, and then after the third turn it's just back to normal.
Right.
And then it still does, with this aura on it, it still does keep shrinking until
Right.
it eventually dies. But, you know, maybe you'll be able to get in for those couple points of damage. And it's cheap enough where it's... You can reasonably play it and expect to get some amount of value of it. You don't want this game to be going long if if you're playing this card, but if you're wanting the games to be over very quickly, playing one of these is probably good. I wouldn't play more than one.
Unless you have a way to transfer those -1 counters away, it's only going to be doing 6, and that's if you hit every time.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. It's very conditional. It's pretty aggro, so you can put it on a creature that otherwise would have been blocked. It's not blocked because they don't want to block a +3 creature now.
Yeah.
But other than that, like the auras are really, really, really hard to play well, and they're at best 1 or 2 a deck, depending on your deck. And this one might get there and might not, but you don't want to be playing too many of these.
Yeah.
And also, you definitely don't want to be playing it on your opponent's creatures, waiting 3 turns to start going neg.
Yeah, you definitely don't want
don't
to.
want this.
Hey, I'd kind of like to see if that situation comes
Right.
up where it's a really long roundabout removal spell, but hey, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta
Sometimes
do.
you gotta
I
do
guess.
those really slow, like control-y decks. It might, if you have a way to tap them down, multiple turns.
Don't do that. But hey,
The desperation might exist, but yeah, don't do that.
Yeah.
So.
So our next card, Deem Worthy. This is the cool one with the game day playmat art.
Yes.
It's 4 and a red. It's an instant. Deal Worthy deals 7 damage to target creature. 7. That's huge.
7.
That kills
That's a lot
basically
of damage.
everything. But this also has cycling for 3 and a red. And when you cycle Deem Worthy, you may have it deal 2 damage to target creature.
Okay. I'm liking that.
This
the
card's
cycle ability.
pretty good.
Yeah, I think you want to cycle this card more often than not, and if you have to, pay 5 to hit a creature.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a 2-for-1 right there if you can nail a creature.
I mean, all that being said, we talked about black having there's always a unconditional black removal spell, oftentimes an instant that costs about 5 mana. This is almost equivalent to that. This is gonna kill just about everything in the format.
You always got to look about how many creatures you can kill with toughness of 2 or less, and there's always a lot.
For not even for its cycling ability, for 5.
For 5?
Yeah,
oh, yeah.
I mean, you'd
It's
play
almost-
a 4 and a black exile target creature. Granted, exiling, especially in this set, is a little bit better, but this kills just about everything that the other thing does.
It does. I mean, I don't think we've seen one creature that it wouldn't hit.
I mean, there's a couple indestructible,
indestructible.
creatures, and then I guess the embalm synergies, because
Right.
if you kill an
Yeah,
embalm
exactly.
creature,
You
they
want-
do just get it back.
you'd rather
But
exile.
for the most
Yeah.
part, any creature that you can hit, this will kill it.
Right.
And the cycling is just candy on top of that.
And it's an instant, so
yeah,
it's got,
you wouldn't be too upset to play deal 7 for 5 mana just by itself. You play one kind of a little less than begrudgingly, just like in the black deck, the exile card, that one's, like we said, a little bit better, and you'd still play at least one of those. So this card's pretty good, and having the cycling ability just makes it leaps and bounds better.
Right. Yeah, and it only hits creatures. It doesn't hit players.
Yeah.
So it is. You really want this card to cycle, but if you have to do it for 7, you gotta do it.
We've said it time and time again. Basically, if you would play a card even begrudgingly for its straight up ability and its mana cost, when you slap cycling onto it, that card becomes so much better.
So much better.
Yeah,
So
and
much
this
better.
is one of those cases.
Yeah.
And two damage is going to kill a fair amount of things.
Drawing a card.
Pick Deem Worthy. It's going to be pretty good. Desert Ceradon. Oh, this one's interesting. This is a huge creature. It's 5 and a red. It's a common, it's a beast, and it's got cycling for a red. It's a 6/4.
Okay. I like
Okay,
it. It's
yeah.
a Craw Giant that cycles and in red.
Yeah.
We've seen creatures like this before. Good early good turn 1 if you're digging. Good turn 6 if you need a creature. In between that, you know.
Six power is huge.
6 power is huge.
6 power is huge.
Right.
I mean, there's the 4 toughness is not the greatest thing in the world.
You can't expect him to live forever when you do play him, but if he does get in there, he does for 6, and if you need a big creature, he's there.
Yep. I play this pretty much in almost any red deck, because just there will be times where you get to the 6 mana and you have to, and this is your kind of your late game and you play this, and it's got the cycling for a single red is just makes this card very, very good.
That's what makes the card. And sometimes you are looking for a 6-drop. You have all your 5 and less drops. All your creatures good.
The average red deck is going to play this card and it's not going to feel too bad about it.
Right.
Cool. So if you see one, you can reasonably expect to grab one. Electrify is our next card. It's an instant for 3 and a red, and Electrify deals 4 damage to target creature. Cool.
I think it's missing something. I think it's missing deal 4 damage to a player.
Well, for 4 mana, that would be pretty broken,
right?
Especially at instant speed.
Well, I mean, they had it in the last set, but in just the dual deck alone, it was like Flame Lash, I think, but not in the draft. So you couldn't play it limited.
Yeah.
But it was a play on an old card, Lightning Strike, which maybe we haven't seen in Standard for a while outside the dual deck, because if it's really power of doing 4 damage to a player.
Yeah. Well, in this world, we were only going to be able to deal 4 damage to a creature. 4 damage for 4. 4 damage is pretty good. It kills a lot of things. It's fairly efficient. It's okay.
I always wanted to see that player damage because maybe I'm spoiled and I've played with Lightning Blast before. So you do want to hit those Planeswalkers sometimes, but yeah, 4 damage to a creature. I mean, at least it doesn't say player only. That's, so
yeah, exactly. You'll pick this up. You'll play one. You'll probably play. You wouldn't feel too bad playing 2 for damage, especially at instant speed for 4 is good. It'll be able to take care of a bunch of things, and then sometimes you'll just need it to finish off your opponent's big thing. So don't feel too bad about picking it up.
Right, but don't want to play any more than 2, I'd say.
Yeah,
because it is expensive, and it only does 4, so it doesn't exile anything or doesn't do 7 damage. So, all right, on to Emberhorn Minotaur. So 3 and a red. 4/3. You may exert. I think. Hold on. I gotta pause. Is exert only when you attack?
Yes.
Okay. So that's exert. It kind of makes sense. You may exert Emberhorn Minotaur as it attacks, and when you do, it gets +1/+1 and menace until end of turn. Okay.
Yeah, this is actually a pretty good exert creature.
Right.
It is a common, and the 4/3 stats for 4 are okay. It's going to end up getting blocked a bunch of the time, but that exert ability is actually quite good. Giving that pseudo evasion and forcing your opponent to double block means that you get the choice of making your trades, because being the low toughness, it's going to trade, but you get to choose what creature ends up dying on your opponent's side.
And to be able to just do a big chunk of damage, 5. It's very hard to block menace creatures. To do 5, this guy is a game finisher. He's a splashable 4/3 for 4. I think he's good, and I think that this guy, a lot of times you'll overlook those exerts, and they'll be coming at you before you even know it. And if you didn't plan correctly, it's gonna hurt.
Yeah. So, this guy certainly will. And 5/4 menace. That's a threat. That's a threat. 5/4 menace on turn 5. Attacking you on turn 5. Yeah, that's pretty scary. This card's pretty good.
You got to keep 2 blockers open, and to kill it, you got to have total of 2 power among them. This guy is gonna, when he wants to, he's gonna hurt, and he's gonna get in there and smash for that last bit of damage.
Yeah, and even just attacking as a 4/3 by itself, it's not bad. It's not the end of the world. It's not great, but 4 power attacking on turn 5 is still halfway decent. So. This card's pretty good. You pick it up about midway through the pack and you don't feel too bad about it.
Yeah, maybe a little over midway, but he's going to be good. Don't feel bad about it at all. Take this guy.
Yep.
All right, Flameblade Adept. For 1 red, a 1/2 menace. He is a Jackal Warrior. Whenever you cycle or discard a card, Flameblade Adept gets +1/+0 until end of turn.
Okay.
So our first cycling or discard matters in red?
Yep. Okay. Well, there was the other one that enabled the guy that rummages when you exert a creature. He's the first one that actually matters. So it has built-in menace. It's uncommon. We've seen a lot of just like single red cards so far, which kind of
Right,
red
a lot
is
of one-drops,
being
right?
aggressive. Yeah, exactly. I'm not too excited about this card because the setup is so high.
Yeah.
You have to do a lot just to give it +1.
Right, and then for each
it's like
cycle,
+1 +0.
+1 +0, and that's it. Like, no.
Like if you have a lot of cycling cards in your deck, you're probably not going to be quite as aggressive as this card as a 1-drop with menace and a pumping ability wants you to be. And if you're discarding a lot of cards, you're going to kind of run out of gas. So effectively, you probably can't expect to get more than maybe 2.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're getting two pumps of this a turn, then
Right.
I guess it's pretty good. But I don't know what world you're living in where
Right.
you're going to be able to do that. So
and that means he has to hit too. So
yeah, exactly. This card's probably going to be a pass, unfortunately, despite it looking cool
Yeah.
and the effect sounding really cool.
And the fact that he has menace only makes him maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
More often than not, it's just going to be a 1/2 menace for 1, which
Right.
it really isn't worth a card.
Right. No.
Yeah, it's occasionally it'll be a 2/2 menace, but even then, who cares?
There's better 1-drops.
Yeah, exactly. So Flameblade Adept, probably going to be a pass.
Probably not. Okay. Fling, we've seen this card before. For those of you who don't know what it does, for 1 and a red, instant. As an additional cost to cast Fling, sacrifice a creature. Fling deals damage equal to the sacrificed creature's power to target creature or player. So basically,
That's pretty cool.
yeah, if you just think about it, you just throw your creature at him.
Yep.
You can throw it at a creature, another creature,
Throw it
or
at
a player.
creature or player. Yep.
And Fling deals the damage, not the creature. So that's always maybe kind of an issue with like lifelink or yeah. So you can't get that lifelink in there because the creature is sacrificed, so it really doesn't do the damage.
Yeah,
so
it's
just
Fling
to know.
doing the damage on the
Right,
creature.
yeah.
Yeah.
But for a god target,
Yeah,
Fling and gods,
I guess
yeah.
if you have something big and maybe this is your finisher, this is it's one of those things where this has a very high cost.
Right.
Maybe not necessarily in mana, but you're killing off one of your creatures, so you better be expecting this to do something very good.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like on average, this card isn't going to be doing something that's very good. More often than not, you're probably just going to want to be keeping your creature around. That being said, sometimes you're going to win the game by flinging your creature at your opponent to get that last couple points of reach.
And you can do it instantly after they attack and deal their regular combat damage.
Yeah.
Also, it is kind of risky because as an additional cost to play it, you sacrifice the creature. So if it is countered or manipulated somehow or returned to your hand, you lose that creature.
Yep.
So
yeah, definitely. So Fling, you can safely pass it, but if you're not sad if you don't have one. In fact, you might even be happy if you don't have one. But there also might be situations where it can get you the game. But don't fling your creature lightly.
I just think it's kind of wrong that we're flinging gods. It'd be the other way around. Like, I guess.
Yeah, I guess there's a potential those really big undercosted creatures that can't be dealt with otherwise. Yeah, but hey,
it's fling.
Yeah. Hyena Pack is our next card. It's 2 red for a 3/4 hyena at common. That's it. Just flavor text otherwise.
Yep.
3/4 for 4. The stats are kind of okay.
Yeah.
This is our first red creature where we've seen the butt be a little bit bigger.
Right.
Well, I guess except for the discard jackal guy, but that one doesn't really count because you don't want to play that card. This card's probably going to be okay filler.
Yep.
That you're not too upset about, but
if you're having a problem
I'd much
finding,
rather have another card.
Yeah, if you're having a problem finding a 4-drop creature, if that ever does happen to you, he's there, but expect this guy not to be a high pick at all.
No,
I've been stuck
not.
with cards like this multiple time again, as many as like 2 or 3 in a draft, and I've never played one of them. So
there's so much value in this set and things that you can do with your mana and with your creatures, and there's a lot of really good creatures that this kind of just feels really underwhelming. But it's kind of almost the basis of your deck. You're going to play some number of these just like meh creatures, and sometimes you got to play it.
When you're looking at a pack with a bunch of creatures that do things and a creature that doesn't, I mean, you're going to go with the creature that does things.
Exactly. So you'll get these late, and if you're in red, you'll play 1. If you have to play 2 or 3, you're really upset.
Right.
But hey, sometimes that happens.
Sometimes it does.
Yep. The Limits of Solidarity is our next card. It's 3 in a red for an uncommon sorcery. Look, it's our threaten type effect of the set. Gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap that creature, it gains haste until end of turn. meh, we've seen this effect before. Oh wait, it's also got cycling for 2.
Oh, of course, this has cycling.
Sure. Staple cycling onto a card and it just gets way better.
Right.
Normally, you don't always want that type of effect. Sometimes these threatened cards, they win the game. There's often times where they just rot in your hand. In fact, a lot of the times. But you staple cycling onto it, it's pretty good.
Yeah. I mean,
and that's why this threaten effect is actually at uncommon rather than common, like we've seen multiple times before.
Right.
Because of the cycling.
Because it cycles, it's okay. I don't really like picking these cards because it takes a certain creature to steal at a certain point in the game, and especially this one for 4 mana.
Yeah.
I see myself cycling this card 95% of the time.
Yeah, that's exactly. But when you do have that opportunity, that's why.
Yes, exactly.
But that whole sequence of thought is exactly why cycling is good,
Right.
and why you don't feel too bad playing this card.
It's just like a conditional burn to a player. Yeah. It's not too bad, but I'm just not going to pick this card.
Hey, maybe
ever.
you can Limits of Solidarity, attack with their thing, and then fling it.
Okay.
That's pretty cool.
That would be cool.
Yeah,
So for
that would be cool
for 6,
mana. Don't plan on doing that just
Right.
because there's not really any other
Yeah.
sacrifice themes, but just cool
Yeah.
little synergies. This card's not too bad. You don't feel bad for playing it, especially because of the cycling.
Mad style points if you can do that.
Yeah, exactly, definitely. Magma Spray. Oh yeah, that card's back. It's single
Awesome.
red instant. Deals 2 damage to target creature. If that creature would die, exile it instead.
I mean, it's
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's red Swords of Plowshares. Get that creature out of there, exile it. I mean, it's not red Swords of Plowshares, don't get me wrong, but it's what red can exile. It can do that, and yeah, it's a card that we needed in Standard, but in this format, is it going to be good? Okay, well, the Embalms, So we've seen
get
Embalm
rid of
bears.
the embalm creatures. And the Magma Spray, even if it doesn't kill the creature by itself, this in conjunction with some combat damage.
Exactly.
It's gonna
And it will exile.
Yeah,
Right.
it's going to be halfway decent. This card goes up a little bit in value when exiling actually matters, and
Right.
in the set, exiling matters for a fair amount of cards. So this card's pretty good. You pick it up, just like in our Aether Revolt
Right.
Kaladesh drafts, we played Shock. It was pretty good. Granted, Shock could go to the player's face, but I think the upside of being able to exile kind of brings it up a notch
exile,
and brings it pretty close to Shock.
Yeah, you lose face damage, but you get that exile. Now, let me ask you a question. There is such thing as too much removal.
Yeah.
How many Magma Sprays do you think would be too much?
I'll play like 1 or 2 Magma Sprays.
Right. 'Cause
I'm not playing 3 or 4.
Right, because then eventually you'll end up double Magma Spraying and losing value just for one creature. Because
Yeah,
not
yeah.
every creature has 2 toughness, and you don't always want to use this in combat, but you do want to like poke here and there when you need it to get rid of a blocker or get rid of an attacker in a pinch. But yeah, I think that maybe 2.
Yeah. Two's not too bad.
Probably 2?
Yeah. I play it, and there's a lot of 2 toughness creatures out there that you want to get rid of, and even if it's not an embalm creature, any 2 toughness is a good target for this.
2.
Yep, get rid of them. Our next card, the Manticore of the Gauntlet. It's a 5/4 beast, or pardon me, it's a 5/4 Manticore. Haven't seen those in a little bit. It costs 5, so 4 and a red, and when Manticore of the Gauntlet enters the battlefield, put a -1/-1 counter on target creature you control. Manticore of the Gauntlet deals 3 damage to target opponent.
Okay.
Whoa.
I think that this card
There's a lot of stuff going on in this
wait,
text box.
3 damage to target opponent.
3 damage to an opponent, -1/-1 counter on target creature opponent controls.
Oh, okay, so it has a chance to
So
kill.
shrinks a creature. By this point in the game, it's probably not killing something. Shrinks one of their creatures and bolts them.
By this time of the game, it won't. It'll disable a creature,
Yeah.
hopefully kill one, but probably not, and then bolts a player. I mean, I think there's a theme with these Manticores because they have like a scorpion-like tail. They like to do damage, or hurt things. So kind of like Masticore and all the other ones. But this is cool. This is what this guy does. He hits the player, so he threatens. He's almost like a little bit of haste in there because he like hits players directly, and then he can shrink creatures.
Yeah.
And he's 5/4 for 5. I like this guy.
Yeah, the toughness is a little underwhelming for something that you're forgetting for 5 mana. The power is certainly there, and it'll be able to attack. I'm not too upset about playing this card.
Right. I mean, if you have multiples of them, you can keep putting on the -1 counters on that same creature, but that means that you have to be playing them 5.
And then you have to be playing multiples of this card, which I don't think you want to be playing multiples of this card.
But then you're doing 3 damage a time to the player. If you could flicker him, he would be awesome. But you know, he's well rounded, and I think that he would be a great way to start your 5-turn and up match. You know, I mean. He threatens the opponent. If your opponent's at low life, you might think differently about blocking after this, and he could get that pesky 2/1 that's been sitting there all game doing something, you know, and maybe Death Touch or something.
Yeah. And we've seen the -1/-1 counters because they stick around. They still get value, so you don't always have to kill something, but neutralizing one of your opponent's creatures is pretty good.
Or maybe that 3/1 or 2/1 flyer that's been hitting you all game is done, and now you have a 5/4 to answer it with.
Yeah, there we go. So Manticore played in your average red deck. Yep. Cool.
I'll play it. All right, Minotaur Sure Shot. I think we're seeing a little Minotaur theme here.
Yeah, I know. Just a few of them.
Yep. Reach. It's a 2/3 for 3, 2 in a red. For 2, Minotaur Sure Shot gets +1/+0 until end of turn. So kind of an expensive fire breather there.
Yeah, with reach. It's so weird.
Yeah,
a red card with reach.
Oh, I didn't think about that. Because usually red cards don't have reach or they don't fly.
Exactly. Super weird. This card's actually pretty good because it's weird given all of the red creatures we've seen thus far. They all want to be attacking and be very aggressive. This is not an aggressive, despite having the slow fire breathing, it's not an aggressive card really.
Right.
I don't see this at all as an aggressive card. I mean, reach certainly isn't an aggressive keyword ability.
No, not at all.
Normally a 2/3 for 3 is really under par, but the fact that this one can kind of hold back the skies and kill any of their big flyers if you dump a little bit of mana into it, even those late game mana sinks to hold off their big embalm guy. I think I like this card a little bit more than some of the more aggressive red cards we've seen.
I do too, because he has reach, and a lot of times those flyers will fly right over your army of red guys.
Yeah.
And hey, unless you have a burn to deal with that flyer, you might just die to flyers, and that's a thing in limited. Flyers get there. This guy can block them, and also for 4 mana, the turn after you cast him, you can get him up to 4 to kill a 4/4 flyer. And as we all know, 4/4 flyers win the game.
Yeah.
Unless they're indestructible, which we've seen,
That's
But
true.
this guy can put a stop to that, and kind of expensive, but he can do it.
Of note, this set's kind of going to challenge you in your sealed deck building and your drafting, because you're going to have an idea of what your deck wants to be going for. If you're wanting to be aggressive, this card goes down a couple of notches. Whereas if you are a little bit more controlling in the red colors, maybe there's like a blue-red spells deck or another type of spells deck, this card has a little bit more of a home there.
But also, he could sit in your sideboard so that when you are on the draw, you could maybe side a couple of your aggressive guys out just to have a little of a defensive edge.
Yeah, he's certainly flexible, but this card is a lot less aggressive than than a lot of the other red creatures we've seen.
You lose synergy when you just want to be on your front foot, just swinging and bashing like red does.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. Neff Crop Entangler. So we've seen a lot of crop, like farmers or crops.
Yeah,
or,
exactly.
Like a lot of just like whatever. 2/1 for 2. Trample. When you exert Neff Crop Entangler as it attacks, or you may exert. Sorry. If you do, it gets +1/+2 until end of turn. So
this card's kind of weird, and I don't like any part of it.
What is it, because of red trample?
It's a 1/2 trampler, so it's a 1/2 for 2.
2/1. 2/1.
But it gets 2/1. Pardon me.
1/+2.
2/1 trampler, which is kind of garbage by itself, and it gets +1/+2. So when you exert it, it's a 3/3 trample.
That's
not. I don't like this card at all.
No. It's a very wonky exert card.
There's a lot of 2 power, like 2 toughness. It seems there's a lot of revolving around that. Bears, like we said, aren't that good, and this attacking is 3 is not all that much better.
I think when you exert a creature, you want it to do a lot because you are going to lose them next turn, and just a +1 to a trample that's already a 2/1, not very good creature is not going to be very effective. And
I mean, let's just look at a couple of the exert cards we've already looked at. The Emberhorn Minotaur is the 4/3 that gets +1/+1 in Menace, versus this one, it just attacks when you exert it as a 3/3 with Trample. I'd much rather have the evasive creature that hits a lot harder,
much rather,
despite it costing more, because it can do more things with the stats at other points in the game, whereas a 2/1 very quickly is going to be blanked, and when you draw this one late, you're very upset. Whereas when you draw the Emberhorn Minotaur late, you're okay. Yeah, it's still okay. So I think the Neff Crop Entangler is kind of a pass.
And I think that the exert creatures, they have to be good on their own without exerting.
Definitely. Exactly. You have to want to be able to play them without exerting.
Yeah, because when you do exert these guys, they're going to be out for a whole turn, and that's almost like losing them. You can't really expect to untap with these guys after you exert them. So it's kind of like your last chance to do something, and this guy won't do it.
Yeah,
really, so.
Yeah, exactly. So the Neff Crop it's probably going to be a pass.
A pass.
Yeah, unless you're in the market for that, which I hope. Hopefully you're not.
Nimble Blade
Kenra.
Yeah. So 1/3 for 2, which is kind of outside of the red, but he has prowess. So
that's cool. We've seen our first prowess.
First prowess guy. Yeah. So we've seen the cycle and discard +1/+1, and now we see a prowess. So. Yeah. Kind of odd just throw in right there, but I guess every set needs to have a prowess now because
every set needs to have a 1/3 red prowess.
No, but I think prowess is now a stable ability.
Shadows had that one vampire.
Yeah,
that had
I think you're right. I think you're right.
I mean, we didn't see one in Kaladesh, but we've seen something similar.
Yeah.
This card's just okay if you have a bunch of spells. It gets a little bit better. Otherwise, you really don't want to be playing this card. It's not exciting.
Right. Yeah. It's like I said, it's always kind of hard to attack or block these guys, but. As a red, like you don't want to have the sit back with this guy. You want to be attacking, When you
have to do something to make your card perform like a card you want to have, odds are it's not that good to begin with, and you probably don't want it in your deck.
Right.
If you're playing your 1/3 and you're thinking that, all right, I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z, and then this card's gonna be awesome, more often than not. You're going to get A, B, and C instead of X, Y, and Z, and this card's just going to underperform. So you pass up on this card.
Awesome.
Yep. So that brings us to Pathmaker Initiate. Another 2/1 for 1 and a red, so another 2/1 for 2. This one has tap. Target creature with power 2 or less can't be blocked this turn. This one's okay. This effect is certainly a little bit better. You're probably going to be playing some number of 2-drop creatures. Like I said, they're not exciting. You don't need to prioritize them. But if you do have one, this one, having an ability that gives your creature evasion of some sort is good.
And the highest evasion of all can't be blocked.
Yeah, so. It can't be blocked. Granted, it's limited to creatures with power 2 or less. But that's pretty cool. Say you target your exert creature before it exerts, and then when you attack with it, it exerts and it makes it bigger. Yeah. So it still is unblockable because the restriction's only on the targeting.
Right,
the creature remains unblockable afterwards.
So it's only kind of in the attack phase that he gets the bonus too. So you tap him first to give him unblockable, and then you choose to exert on the declare attacker stuff.
Exactly.
Okay,
That's exactly how it works.
Okay.
The card seems a little bit better, and I wouldn't be too upset playing one of these if I'm aggressive. If I'm defensive, I don't have any business playing this card.
Yeah, a certain time in the game you'll want this ability, but also it does take him out of combat.
Yeah.
So, it'll take a creature out, so just to get those last 2 points in, maybe 3 if you can exert it.
Of the 2-mana red creatures that we've seen, this is one of the ones out of the other red creatures, this is the one I'm the most excited to play.
I mean, I think I agree with that because of the 2 mana red creatures, we haven't seen much. So
yeah, exactly. This one's going to do a little bit more. In fact, I like this one more than some of the red 1-drop creatures.
Yeah.
Our next red card is Pursue Glory. It's an instant for 3 and a red. Attacking creatures get +2/+0 until end of turn. That's pretty good.
Yep.
And yet another card with cycling. Cycling for 2. 2 generic mana.
Okay. +2/+0. So it's red's like Overrun. It's instant. These cards want to be used with a bunch of tokens and a bunch of attackers.
Yep.
No boost to the defense. So it's an all attacking creature. Overrun, and it's an instant, so they don't see it coming, and it's going to hit for a lot of damage. But it's very conditional.
Yeah, these are very conditional, especially red's gotten these types of things before. We've seen occasionally with white. Oftentimes with the white ones, you can use it at any time. But the creatures have to. It only works on attacking creatures, so don't expect this to be able to trade up when you're trying to block. Because that's not going to work out really well for you. In fact, it'll bump your opponent's creatures when they're attacking. But the cycling is actually what makes it. We've seen before there isn't really much of a token sub-theme. We haven't really seen, there are probably some go-wide strategies, but usually that involves some amount of token generators, which we really haven't seen. And this card's... Of course, cycling makes it better, but I'm still not excited about this card.
I'm not too excited about this card. I mean, I've drafted these cards before and been very underwhelmed with when they stick in your hand. It does cycle, but even that said, I don't want to...
Yeah, this is one of the cycling cards that you can find other cycling cards that are better. sure you'll play one of these begrudgingly, even with a cycle.
Right. But I don't want to draft a card that I'm going to be cycling 75% of the time.
Yeah, exactly. This card's probably on average only going to get you in for maybe another couple points of damage. Plus, it being 4, it's very expensive, so your opponent's going to know about this card and is a fair amount of time going to be able to see this coming.
Right, and then after you do it, you really don't have a chance to do really anything else that turn. So
exactly.
You can't play creature.
So use these kind of cards with caution.
With caution.
Yeah, definitely with caution.
Proceed with caution.
Yeah, definitely. Pursue with caution, I guess. Our next red card, Thresher Lizard. 2 and a red for a 3/2, so that's pretty cool. 3/2 for 3. A Thresher Lizard gets +1/+2 as long as you have 1 or fewer cards in hand. All right, so once again, these discarding and low hand count cards matters. When you only have 1 or less cards in hand, it's a 4/4.
I really
that's
like.
pretty good.
3 mana 4/4s are really hard to beat at that time of the game. They're almost 2 turns ahead of curve if you're looking at the average power and toughness to mana cost.
Yep.
And it doesn't take much. I mean, you want to play a very aggressive, fast deck with this guy, but if you...
And even then, even actually with the kind of stats that this has, for 3 mana, you'll kind of fill this... This will be your 23rd card in your red deck as just like some filler. And actually, it's not even the worst kind of like just boring vanilla creature. You're upset when you have to play a vanilla 3/2 for 3, but I mean sometimes you just play that card, and the fact that it's got the +1/+2 when you have 1 or fewer is actually just bonus, and you should evaluate it as a bonus. You shouldn't look at it and think, well, I'm playing a controlling deck and I really don't ever want to get to that. This card is bad. Well, no, at its base it's still a 3/2 for 3, which you'd play some amount of time. You're not. It's never exciting, but you'll play it.
Sometimes you got to play 3/2s for 3. And sometimes they turn into 4/4s for 3.
Yeah,
he's good. He's a vanilla creature, but the vanilla creatures with high power and toughness to their mana cost are not vanilla creatures, are they? Really?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's like slightly more. It's got a little bit of vanilla. Maybe it's got some sprinkles on it.
Yes, exactly.
It's vanilla with some sprinkles.
Yes, it's vanilla with some sprinkles.
Yeah. You don't really pick this card highly. Maybe you'll get some, but it's just a filler card.
Yeah.
But it's not. Don't look at the text box and think I'm not going to do this, so it's bad. It's still just filler, and that is in fact just upside.
Yeah. All right, Tormenting Voice. We've seen this one before. As an additional cost to play Tormenting Voice, discard a card, draw 2 cards. Now, the only thing different about this card is the art. On
the art's pretty sick.
Yeah.
I like the art.
I do. It looks very tormenting.
Yeah, it's pretty scary.
You can't really. You can kind of feel the agony this individual is going through, hearing these tormenting voices and thinking that somehow by putting her hands on her ears, it's going to go away, but it's not, right?
Yeah, no, I think that's probably how you feel if you have to play this card.
Right, yes, if you do.
We've seen that discarding has a little bit of synergy in the set with some of the creatures, especially with some of the red creatures we've seen. There's some other cards that, there's some additional bonus when you're discarding or cycling a card. And while you're discarding cards with this card, I'm still not excited to play Tormenting Voice. We didn't play Tormenting Voice when there was Madness. You really weren't even excited. In fact, sometimes that card just felt bad. Right. So this is the same kind of thing.
Yeah. It's only really good inside of a Dredge shell, and I don't really see that in this format at all.
Definitely
Maybe discarding an Embalm Guy to draw 2 more, but really when it comes down to it, there's no card advantage involved here. It's a risk because an additional cost you discard, so somehow if it is countered by that Force Spike spell, you're out basically, and it's those discard and cycles matters are really good at instant speed, and because they don't really see them coming, and this one's sorcery speed, it's pretty wonky.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't even really have to think about the worst case scenarios when it's at its baseline. It's still kind of not that good. So yeah, this Tormenting Voice probably a pass. I guess it does go up a little bit in value, like we said, if you have those discard matters. But for the most part, you still don't even want to play this.
No, you don't.
Yep. So what do we got next?
Trial of Zeal onto our red trial.
Here we go.
All right, so 3, 2 and a red. Enchantment. When Trial of Zeal enters the battlefield, it deals 3 damage to target creature or player.
There we go. That's pretty good. And just like the rest of the trials, when you play a cartouche, it bounces back to your hand.
And you can play it again.
This card's really good.
This card is a high pick. I picked the black sacrifice trial very highly, number 1 a lot of times.
And this one as well.
At this one as well. It comes back for a chance to kill multiple creatures or even hit players in the face multiple times in a game. It's going to be very, very, very hard to play against a deck that does 3 damage to multiple things with just 1 card.
This one, despite it being a little bit more expensive, this one might be a little bit better than the Black Cartouche.
Right, because...
granted, the Black Cartouche has the ability, if you maneuver the game state, to kill a much bigger creature, but on average, I feel like this is going to kill the creature that you want it to kill.
And if you do get a chance to play 2 of them, God forbid, and get both of them back, your opponent's going to be very wary of 2 deal 3 damage cards in your hand that he knows about.
Oh,
or
yeah.
she.
Yeah.
But this card is all around value. Even if you never get it back, this card is
exactly.
One
One of the things you have to do when you're evaluating when you pick up the trials is you have to look at them in a vacuum. Would you play this without the cartouche? And this card, you definitely would play it without cartouches to bounce.
Would, yeah.
And when you do have cartouches, this card just gets so much better, having the repeatable 3 points of damage, and maybe it'll go to face and end the game.
Yeah.
So this card's very good, and you should probably pick it very highly.
Yep. All right, on to our next card, True Heart Twins for 5, 4/4. It's an exert creature. When you exert True Heart Twins as it attacks, you may. If you do, it gets...
when you exert a creature, creatures you control get +1/+0
so this one's a little
until end of
different.
turn. This is another one of... It itself doesn't have its own thing any time you exert a creature, including itself, all of your other creatures are going to get +1/+0.
So he's like the Exert Lord here. He rewards you for playing other Exert creatures. So not only when you don't have to exert him, but you can play him and then attack with an Exert, and it'll give all your creatures +1/+0.
Yeah,
so
this card's not too bad.
I like it because Exert, you want to do a big attack. And if you have multiple exerts and you want to do them all at once, you get +1 for each of those exerts. So if you, just at the bare minimum, just him exerting, just himself or another creature, +1. If you exert with 2 creatures, your whole team gets +2. And I think that's pretty good. 4/4 for 5. We've seen better.
It's not bad. We certainly have seen better before, but this is the kind of thing exactly why the Pursue Glory is like less exciting, because we see a pretty close version of that kind of tacked onto creatures.
And we have seen a lot of Exert here, so we have a lot of options in multiple colors, except for maybe not blue, but of Exert. And I think that if you're staring at an army about to come at you that there's multiple instances of Exert, you're always kind of wondering, is he going to do it? Are they going to do it? And this will give you the reason to do it, so
it's not the most exciting exert ability, and the fact that other creatures can use it if you exert with something else. So if you have this and another exerted creature, you exert each on every other combat, so you get a trigger every turn,
right?
If that makes sense. It's kind of good. Only bumping the power, like we've seen before, isn't as good as also bumping the toughness, but playing a 4/4 for 5, you're not too upset, and when you do get that extra value, it's pretty good.
Right. And he rewards you for the multiple exerts. So.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, on to our land destruction / artifact destruction red card. Violent Impact. Destroy target artifact or land or cycling for 2.
It costs 3 and a red.
3 and a red, yes. So I think this card it's okay. It cycles for 2, but a lot of times when you hit a land and they don't expect it, and if they're land screwed, it wins the game. Just by hitting a land, and it's expensive at 4. But I'm an old school player, and I like to destroy lands. So.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
And artifacts too, or and then cycling for 2.
This is probably still maybe only a sideboard card at best.
Yeah.
Despite it having cycling, it's okay. Maybe I still don't think you main deck. This card. It's a little bit. You can find there's tons of cycling cards, and if you want to be cycling, you're going to be able to get it. You don't have to spend a pick on this card.
Right. I kind of would want it. It would be hard to play it over a good creature in the 4 slot, but it does cycle early. And like I said, if you can hit that land, it could be like a time walk if they're screwed on land, or if they want to be greedy and go 3 colors.
But I think that's the reason you kind of have to look at cycling. If there were only a couple of cycling cards, then it's okay.
Right.
Or maybe if it was still just cycling for just a red, but we've seen cycling on so many different things, and you're not going to put 12 cycling cards in your deck. You're not going to have that deck, and that deck probably won't be good. When you have your 3 or 4 maybe 5 cards that cycle. This is definitely on the bottom tier of that list. So sure, if you don't have any cycling things and maybe you want to main deck it, but I don't think you ever need to.
Okay. But it is pretty rough when you lose your 1 blue source.
That is true. That is true.
So yeah, not a high pick for everybody, but for old school Magic players, destroy those lands.
So our next card is the Warfire Javelineer. 3 in a red. It is a 2/3 uncommon Minotaur warrior, yet another Minotaur. And when Warfire Javelineer enters the battlefield, it deals X damage to target creature an opponent controls. All right, I'm liking it so far. Where X is the number of instant and sorcery cards in your graveyard. This is weird. The card itself isn't, but given what we've seen from all of our other red cards, this is super weird because this one wants. It seems like all of our other red cards were wanting to be aggressive, wanting to attack, wanting to exert. This card kind of wants instants and sorceries. So if you have that instants and sorceries deck where you're playing a lot of those, this is kind of a card that rewards you for that. But otherwise, this card's not going to be that great.
Right. I kind of like it though because it gives you the option to. I mean, obviously blue is that. Gives you that spells matter deck, but now we saw it before in blue black, but now we have the option to kind of go blue red here with this. Because there might be more instants and sorceries in your graveyard that you played with cycling, so you're cycling a lot of them, and by the time this guy comes out, he might do 3 or 4, but his power and toughness is just not exciting.
Yeah,
he could cost 1 less,
not.
or he could be +1 on this.
That's why I think you only play this card if you're in the blue-red type of deck.
Exactly.
If you're in any, the average red deck does not want to play this card because your average red deck is probably only playing at most maybe 3 sorceries.
Right.
Instant sorceries combination of the both.
Yeah.
And to happen to have all 3 of those in your graveyard when you play this. The average red deck, if you happen to play this, you're getting a 2/3 for 4 that maybe only deals 1 damage to a creature, which is not a card you want to play.
No. I mean, you really want it to be a Necrotal just to take out anything, but a lot of times you might have to hold this guy back until you play more instants and sorceries.
Which you don't want to be doing. Yeah.
Yeah. If you have 4 mana and you're able to play a creature, the only creature in your hand, you want to play him. Mm-hmm. You do not want to hold this guy back like a sorcery, and sometimes you might have to. So.
Yeah. So, once again, the set's kind of telling you know what your deck wants to do and have an idea of what you're drafting or what you're building, and then go from there.
Yeah.
There's a discrepancy in terms of this card wants to be in this deck, whereas this card wants to be in this deck, and they don't port over well, which actually makes drafting kind of interesting. If there could be potentially multiple red drafters where, you know, one red drafter is drafting multiple the aggressive cards, whereas the other red drafter is in the blue-red spells deck and is taking the more defensive, maybe the reach guy and then this guy. So it'll make it for an interesting draft environment.
Right.
But with that said, we actually just finished red. So wow, that's super exciting. So what do you feel about the red cards?
Well, red is red. It's very aggro. Mm-hmm. We were kind of underwhelmed with some of the 1-drops that we saw.
Exactly.
Yeah, the trial was really good, and the cartouche is okay. We got a couple staples like the Tormenting Voice, which we probably won't see much of, and the Destroy X Artifacts, which is we're not really going to see. I think red is average. I'm not as excited about red as
we have been for the other colors, which is kind of unfortunate. What I think, we were talking about it a little bit, what I think is really interesting about red is the kind of strategic diversity that it gives us. It seems more so in this set than we've seen in a lot in the past that I can feel, is that the types of red cards diverge and almost diverge very far from one another. It feels like there are very aggressive red cards, there's middle of the road kind of average cards, and then there's seemingly very defensive red cards.
Yeah,
so that's what interests me about red. But otherwise, just as a whole,
I'm really excited for red's future. We're kind of seeing it grow up as like a little baby child here. Years ago we didn't see it rummage, as you like to call it. We didn't see it reach until now. So it's kind of going outside its normal color pie, which it's kind of growing up. It started out in this game as very narrow, do a lot of damage and attack a lot, and I think that it has a lot more potential than that to go different options, to go different routes. And red, we're going to be with you, buddy.
Yeah, red. Exactly. I'm excited to see where it ends up taking us.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's good. So, that wraps up red, and we'll be seeing you soon for green.